Today we will be doing observation schedules. Now look at this picture and see and observe what you are seeing. I'm giving you 5 seconds to observe this picture. Now tell me, what did you see in the previous picture? Yes, you saw a red chair. What else? A blue chair. A purple chair. Did you see anything else? Okay, let us see how well did you observe and what are the things that you missed. There was a blue chair. There were some clippings behind, "Thou shalt not park here." There was Phillips 66. There was a cutout. There was a snowman. There was a house at the far end. When I asked you to observe, it involved 5 senses, which is the sight, the hearing, the smell, the touch, and the taste. So, observation includes more than just seeing. When we're filtering observation, it is the world we are observing. Every information that is coming to us, we take in through our senses. Then we do a mental processing and then we make those observations. So observation involves the systematic observation. It involves recording, description, analysis. Now, when is observation useful? When we're trying to understand an ongoing behavior, we're understanding the process, when we want to unfold a situation or we want to know about an event. It is useful when there is a physical event or the outcomes that can be readily seen. And sometimes it is useful when other methods of data collection seem inappropriate. Now, the advantages of observation is that the behavior directly. It provides us direct information. It helps. It is easy to complete. It saves time. And it can be used in natural or experimental settings. Though the advantages of observation are there, but there are also certain disadvantages in the sense that it requires training. Observers' presence may create an artificial situation. For example, when I know that I am being observed, then my behavior would change. Potential for bias. I will observe what I think is correct. I would observe what I think will affect my research. Potential to overlook meaningful aspects. Sometimes a variable may be very important, but I may tend to overlook that aspect. And there is also potential for misinterpretation. I am giving a different meaning to what I am observing. I could say it was because of this reason. Now that is not right, and that is a disadvantage if we are doing an unsystematic way of observation. And also the last disadvantage is that it is difficult to analyze. There are 2 types basically of observation. The first is the unstructured and the second is the structured. Structured is looking for. Sometimes we have some we want to observe. For example, we want to see the level of participation. We want to see the behaviors of children in specific settings. Then in that case, we use a structured observation. We may use a checklist and observe those behaviors. In an unstructured observation is what we are looking at. Sometimes we want to see what is naturally occurring or existing without predetermined ideas. We have an open-ended approach to observation and record all that we observe. For example, if you are in a class and then you are looking at the behaviors, then everything that the child does in the classroom or a student does in the classroom, that is what we record. So observing what does not happen may be as important as observing what does happen. The other types of observation is non-participant. Now in this role, the researcher does not become or aims to become an integral part of the system or the group or the community they are observing. In a non-participant observation, the observer would sit behind or be at a distance and observe what is happening. Whereas in a participant observation, the researcher becomes part of the team, part of the community or the group they are observing. They become one of the team members or the group members when this observation goes on. Now, what are the steps in planning for observation? The first one is to determine who or what we will observe. We just cannot go out into a situation or into a place and say that I want to observe. Observe what? So we need to determine what we want to observe. Then the second thing that we need to do is determine aspects that will be observed. Are we observing some characteristics? Are we observing attributes? Are we observing behaviors? Are we observing leadership styles? What is it that we want to observe? Determine where and when observations will be made. That is, when will I do these observations? Am I sitting in the classroom the whole day? Or am I going to a particular place and sitting there the whole day and making observations? Where do I want to make these observations? Now that would depend upon what is the characteristic, attribute, behavior or the aspect that you want to observe. Develop the observation guide. What we need to do is you decide where you want to observe, how long do you want to observe, what characteristics you are observing, and then you prepare a guide and so that it will help you to observe only those aspects that are of interest to you or that are pertinent to your research problem. Pilot test the observation guide. So once you have developed the observation guide, what we need to do is we need to pilot test these observation guides. Train the observers and have them practice. This is an important aspect because the observers who will be there need specific training in observation. So first train them as to what they have to observe, how they have to observe, when they have to observe, what aspects they have to observe, how they have to fill in that observation, and then make them practice or repeat the observations again and again, so that there is no error in observation. Conduct the observation, then analyze and interpret the collected information and write up and use your findings. So once you have analyzed, you have interpreted the information, we need to analyze and we need to make inferences and apply those findings. Now, who we can observe or what we can observe? People, we can observe individuals, we can observe groups, we can observe communities, we can observe characteristics, interactions between people, behaviors, reactions. We can observe them in physical settings, in environmental features, in physical, and also products we can observe or physical artifacts we can observe. Now, when we are writing a observation schedule, there are certain instructions that we need to follow, and we have to record first the date and site of the session and identify any program detail. That is, you write down the date, that is today's date, for example, if you start your observation, and then the site, where are you observing the person or the community or the group or the team, and then you will write probably the classroom, the playground, the school, the lunchtime. You will have to write the site. When you're writing your observations, it can be a very lengthy process. You're making note of each and everything that you are seeing. Record the start time in the left-hand column. That is, what time do you start your observation? We need to make a record of that. Record as fully as possible. Whatever you see that should be recorded, and then talk to the students, talk to the teachers, talk to the peers, talk to the employers. All actions on the program by the students, any non-program actions such as note-taking, record where necessary, and that will help you in interpretation. Now, when you're writing the report, we also need to write what your comments on what to follow up. For example, if I have observed today and I need to observe on successive days, then at the end of my observations, I will write what I need to do tomorrow or what is it that I need to observe. So I will put my comments on that so that the next day when I'm doing a follow-up, I know exactly what I need to observe and under what conditions. You can put an asterisk so that you can ask people later on in case if there are any confusions and doubts regarding the observation or the behavior that you are observing. You will also try to keep your handwriting more legible. Use a soft pencil. Using a soft pencil will help you in case if you need to photocopy those. Leave a lot of space so that annotations and corrections are easily made. You can write your comments, you can do your corrections if you leave space. Otherwise, if you're writing within your observations, it is possible that there may be some error in your recording later on. Keep a key of the abbreviations that you are used and write it at the bottom of the page. Sometimes we write abbreviations and then later on when we're reading the notes, you try to figure out what does this mean. Now, if you are not able to remember what it meant, probably that part of your observation may be redundant because it will not be reliable. You yourself do not know what it is. So it is better if you could make your abbreviations at the end of the page so that it is easy to analyze and interpret. At the end of the session, attach all the completed pages of the schedule to the covering observation report.